Hello and welcome to the show on what is an unprecedented day in the Premier League and in English football. All professional football has been postponed until April the 4th because of the coronavirus outbreak. It comes after Arsenal head coach Mikel Arteta, amongst others, tested positive for the virus, with several other clubs affected. We will discuss the postponement of the Premier League and its ramifications with our guests, former Chelsea fullback Mario Melchiot and football journalist Miguel Delaney. We'll start, though, by taking a look at the Premier League statement. It says, following a meeting of shareholders today, it was unanimously decided to suspend the Premier League with the intention of returning on the 4th of April, subject to medical advice and conditions at the time. Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters said, above all, we wish Mikel Arteta and Callum Hudson-Odoi speedy recoveries and everyone else affected by COVID-19. It continued in this unprecedented situation. We are working closely with our clubs, government, the FA and EFL, and can reassure everyone the health and welfare of players, staff and supporters are our priority. Despite the challenges, it is the Premier League's aim to reschedule the displaced fixtures, including those played by academy sides, when it is safe to do so. In this fast-moving environment, further updates will be provided when appropriate. So this decision has been taken and it's gone further than government recommendations at the moment. Do you feel it's the right thing to do at this time?
Absolutely, Kels. You know, people are losing their lives. It's a very serious thing. It's really strange to be amongst it. But like it's something that's had to happen, I feel. So you try to get your head around it, and I'm just thinking, yeah, but the ramifications are, you know, people are getting seriously ill and people are dying. And we're talking about Mikel there and we're talking about Hudson-Odoi, but there's people who are being affected as well in football clubs that we have to worry about as well. So it's the whole thing is, like, to me, the ramifications are unbelievable.
And while people in affected countries are being advised not to travel if it's not necessary, there are different legislations in place and different levels of advice in different countries. But broadly, it's don't travel so much, don't have too much contact with other people. It feels like it's the sensible thing to do, to give people the space to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want to bring fear to anybody because I don't want them to feel like they have to be uncomfortable, but I do want them to take this matter really serious, just the way I do it myself. It's just a sad moment, you know, when the most beautiful game that we all love and we always talk about, and now that situation just changed. But hey, when it comes to health, I think we should put that always in front of anything. And I think what they're doing right now with the games, I think that's just one of the key things. And that's the right thing, because look, nothing is better to seeing a bunch of guys perform on the highest level when they're 100% fit and 100% dedicated to the game. And you don't want them to have any worries about family members or anybody around them that can't watch or go through a difficult time.
We'd also got to the stage where there was so much speculation about this. Did it become inevitable, Miguel?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I saw the statement there referred to a fast-moving story. I mean, and that's exactly what it is. It feels like we're having about 7 or 6 news cycles in single days. I mean, even as early as yesterday, we had, even as early as yesterday morning, we had the Real Madrid quarantine story, and by last night, that almost felt like as if it happened weeks ago, because just so much has happened. And yeah, totally. I mean, also I think the Premier League do deserve credit for taking the responsible decision, given that it would have been easy to go along with government advice, which is pretty much to, you know, proceed and try and have a bit of normality to it. And I suppose that's the thing, that in what is an abnormal situation, it was almost like having football on offered a bit of normality, but this shows how the scale of the problem and how unprecedented this is.
Yeah.
It's that decision to go above and beyond and treat football as a separate case. So the government advice is baseline, and the Premier League has decided to go above that, along with various other sporting organisations as well, because of the specific circumstances. If you've got fans not just being at the game, but the travel to and from the game, the fact that players are travelling, they're in contact with lots of people, they're in contact with opponents, with opposition training staff, it just feels that everything has added up.
Absolutely, and when you say it like that as well, you can see what can happen with, you know, people, you know, I know, like, you know, when they're not shaking the hands and you think, but they're not shaking hands when they're still playing, it don't make sense.
But even that was amazing. They didn't shake hands, and then within 2 minutes on the pitch, they're helping each other up.
And at the full-time whistle, it's all hugs and back pats and things. And the thing is, none of us, obviously none of us are medical experts. No. We're not experts in this field, but there is, you know, there's taking sensible precautions, which is what this this feels like it's in line with what is being advised.
Yeah, because when you meet each other, it's like this morning, when
You
we
wear
walk
it-
in, I want to give you a hug and say,
Yeah.
because that's what we normally do when we meet each other. But now you just got to think about it, and it makes total sense. So don't get me wrong, because I think, like even yesterday when I was walking on the street, and there was the craziest thing ever, that a police came over and asked me for a picture, but as she comes over, she shakes my hand, and I'm like, oh, we should not be, but it's just different, and that moment is just like, I hope like everybody can be like that you're aware of like, don't touch each other and just keep a distance.
The thing as well is that football and the football clubs themselves have got a massive role to play in information that they can put out now. That's the main thing now, is to make sure, because people know exactly what's going on, and I think that football can do that better than anyone at the moment. Of course, you're going to have announcements from news and stuff, but just to let people know exactly what's going on, I think the clubs themselves can do something like that, because it's not going to come back on the full. It's going to be another. They're going to revise it again on the full, so it could go on.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that I think they've got to make clear to people.
I think that's an interesting point as well, that you have to take the responsibility and the reach of a competition like the Premier League into account when you're making these decisions. And as Righty said, you can use that as a force for good and as a force for spreading correct and sensible information.
Yeah, that's totally, and yeah, exactly, using the kind of the power of the league in that sense. And I suppose as a contrast, if you look at the situation, say, in Paris on Tuesday, or Wednesday was it, sorry, where they had the game behind closed doors, and yet still thousands of people turned up anyway, almost defeating the purpose.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think, the Premier League has taken the correct course of action.
Yeah.
And been more responsible.
Well, matches in the Premier League were set to go ahead as late as Thursday evening. As Miguel said, it's such a fast-moving story. But then Arsenal confirmed that their head coach, Mikel Arteta, had tested positive for the virus. And they have also released a statement. This is what Arsenal have said. Our London Colney Training Centre has been closed after head coach Mikel Arteta received a positive COVID-19 result this evening. Arsenal personnel who had recent close contact with Mikel now self-isolate in line with government health guidelines. We expect this to be a significant number of people from Colney, including the full first team squad and coaching staff, as well as a smaller number of people from our Hale End Academy, which have also temporarily closed as a precaution. Well, our reporter Vishali Bardwaj is at the Emirates for us today and can bring us the very latest. Vishali, as we said, it is so fast-moving. So just talk us through the last 24 hours.
Yes, well, Kelly, it has been a very busy 24 hours in terms of Arsenal. Of course, last night they issued a statement saying that head coach Mikel Arteta had tested positive for coronavirus, meaning that he, along with the first team and members of staff from the club, would be going into self-isolation as per the government guideline rules, which state, of course, that if you do have coronavirus, if you've met someone who has coronavirus, or if you are showing mild symptoms of it, you must self-isolate for a period of 7 days. The Premier League then, of course, issued a statement to say that Arsenal's next game in the Premier League, which of course was due to take place tomorrow away to Brighton, would be postponed. Now that actually followed the postponement of their other game in midweek, which was of course meant to be against Manchester City. That was not because of Arteta's positive test. That was actually because the Olympiacos owner, remember Olympiacos played Arsenal here recently in the Europa League, he had tested positive for coronavirus, and after that game he had actually met some of the Arsenal players. So that's 2 games postponed for Arsenal this week. And then of course we know that the Premier League have today said that games will not be resuming until the 4th of April. So that's the current situation here at Arsenal. The players they're not training today. There will be no game tomorrow, and our thoughts of course are with Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, how is Mikel Arteta? How is it sort of manifesting itself with him?
Well, in that Arsenal statement, the club did say that he had been feeling poorly, and that's why he took that test. And he actually said that, he had not been feeling well this week. He took a test, but he was actually really disappointed at the fact that he had tested positive, but that he was looking forward to returning to work when he was allowed to do so. Arsenal did also say that, of course, their most important thoughts and everything is all to do with Arteta getting better. But, of course, they are thinking about the safety and well-being of the rest of their staff. That's why everyone's been put into self-isolation. That's why London Colney, the Hale End Academy building, they've been shut down in order to allow for a deep clean of the facilities. But of course our thoughts are with Arteta and the players as they look to try to recover from this.
Vishali, thank you very much. Chelsea have also released a statement yesterday. They said Callum Hudson-Odoi had a positive test result for coronavirus. The Chelsea forward has been on social media in the last couple of hours, and he posted this message.
Hi guys, as you may be aware, I had the virus for the last couple of days, which I've recovered from. I'm following the health guidelines and self-isolating myself from everybody for the week. I hope to see everybody soon and hopefully be back on the pitch very soon. Take care.
Well, it's good to hear that they're feeling well in themselves, Mikel Arteta and Callum Hudson-Odoi. And we're hearing sort of very similar results from people who have had symptoms of coronavirus. But it just indicates that it's not just about this kind of broader issue of the Premier League taking a stand on the spread of coronavirus. It's also about the practical implications, because so many teams now have players and groups of people who are in self-isolation. It would be difficult for them in a practical sense to put out a starting 11, let alone a whole squad.
Yeah, it's just, like I say, because it's a first. It's a first for me to see these things happening, and I wouldn't even think. I don't know what to think of how it would go. If you've got a couple of players, like you see with what happened with Leicester, and like obviously the Arsenal players, you literally can't say, okay, we're going to carry on with this set of players, because you may not have your best players.
So I was actually talking to someone yesterday about this precise issue, and so what happens if they go into isolation? I mean, how do you react? How do you plan it? And it was some connected to a few players basically said, what's already started to happen is they've been given individualised fitness programs just in case. So to at least keep them ticking over and keep them physically fit. But then, as you say, I suppose there's other issues, like, I mean, you can't exactly do team training.
No, and it's what kind of training would you know? This, like I say, I remember when Arsene Wenger sent us away, when he used to send me away, not because I was bad or anything, just because he wanted to get fit. And he would say to me, don't do anything for 4 or 5 days, and then afterwards you start. And I found that very difficult. You don't know what to do. Should I be doing a little bit of something? How hard do I have to work? How fit are the other guys? It's really a strange situation.
It's a tricky one, and I totally agree. But I was bad, and I got a red card. And I remember it was my time with the Ranieri, and it was like 3 games were coming up, and it was 3 weeks at that time. So he said to me, take the first week off, and the last 2 weeks you start just training yourself and get back to top speed. Like we already said, fortunate at that time, the last 2 weeks I was with the group.
Yeah.
Now you have to be alone, and doing it on your own, it becomes almost like a pre-season, like prepping yourself for the season to kick off again. Is it possible? I totally agree. Like you can do that. You can train yourself. Of course, those guys are. We're talking about the top fitness guys in the world, and for them to achieve the standards that they need to perform in the Premier League, they definitely can do it. But just for this situation, I'm sure your happiness won't be there, because you want to be with the group. You want to train with your boys, because that's what football is about.
Something that just struck there actually when Vishali was speaking about Mikel Arteta, which said how disappointed he was, and even obviously this kind of pales next to the actual real life concerns of coronavirus. But even from the perspective of a manager like that, I mean, this is someone he's had a few good results recently. He's raring to go, wants to get down to work, and then suddenly it's not just that he can't stop working, but that his whole mode of work is almost put on hold into this situation where we don't know what's next, and the frustration of that. And it's interesting that I suppose it shows maybe the competitiveness of Arteta as well, that his actual main concern isn't his own health.
Yeah, it's like him getting back into it.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, I'm very happy that the guys are coming out when they feel certain aspects, that they come forward straight away. Because you can have it also the other way, that people are saying like, I'm not sure, I feel a bit down, but I will be okay. I'm happy that they all come forward, and also for other people to see that it's normal to speak out, because you want people to highlight points that when they feel like a dizziness or uncomfortable with a cough, or they feel in a certain way that can activate something like this particular, I'm very happy that they come forward and say like, hey, I had it.
And Premier League footballers in particular are very highly attuned to their own health, aren't they? They notice every slight difference in that. But we looked at Arsenal and Chelsea in those 2 instances. But I think it's 7 clubs now have been affected in varying degrees with coronavirus.
Yeah, and I think obviously because we've only the 2 confirmed cases, there are a few suspected cases more so, or players showing symptoms that they don't know yet. But of course the issue is to follow the protocols and self-isolate until you do know, and which of course would have, I mean, even before the suspension, would have played havoc with this weekend's fixtures anyway. Because it was Everton as well that came out quite early this morning and announced, which would have, put the Merseyside derby off.
Yeah, because of course there is the announcement about Everton. We will